Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thanks again for being a part of this conversation. I'm Phil Dark, your host, and with me is my brother, Paul Jobson. Paul, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, man. Great to be back on the pod and recapping four just really awesome guests that we had. But yeah, things are going good, my man.
Yeah, and I neglected to mention this is our season 11 halftime show, and it's so great that as we're going along, and we're now coming up on 150 episodes,
Ooh,
and
man.
to know that the guests, there is no drop off whatsoever. I don't even want to say they keep on getting better because that would imply that the other guests were not great. No, it's like it's just solid, and people I think the conversations are going deeper sometimes, just because I think we are getting more comfortable with each other, with the guests, and, to know when we go deeper, when we go more vulnerable, it tends to be better conversations,
Yeah.
and people are getting real, and that's what's so cool about it is these are people that I've known for a while, a lot of them, not all of them. Some of them I meet the first time we hop on a call.
Yeah.
But the people that I've known for a bit, and then it's like, man, we get through this conversation. I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. This is so cool. We get to have an hour and a half conversation sometimes, usually a little over an hour. Don't want to scare you off. But yeah, so what do you think about that, man? We've done a lot of interviews now. Who'd have thought when we first said, hey, let's do this thing that we're going 150 and no plans on stopping anytime soon, So what do you think about
Yeah,
that?
it's crazy. I mean, that 150 number just, I mean, it just kind of shocks you, that I think sometimes you're like, man, how many people are actually out there? I mean, obviously there's millions, but at the same time, it's so cool the folks who are excited to get on the podcast and talk to
Yeah.
us. And like you said, I mean, I think when we start talking through our four guests today, I think they're one of the words that strikes out to me is vulnerability, with some of them for sure. And, just the ability to learn so much from these guests over the years. Again, we talk about it all the time, right? Like selfishly, I'm getting a lot out of this. I know you are too. We talk about it, but I just hope that our listeners are as well. And, learning something, not just about the game, but, obviously life and leadership. And yeah, that 150 is a big number coming up. And like you said, not looking to slow down anytime soon. I think still got a lot to do, man.
I know, seriously. Speaking of a lot to do, we mentioned last time that last time, the post-match show for season 10, that you were getting ready to head down to Costa Rica with, the Samford women's soccer team and your buddy Todd Yelton. Good trip?
Man, it was a great trip. We had just an amazing time. And I mean, you've been on these trips, before, and you never really know what you're stepping into, when you open that door and God opens that door and just the right people, the right situation. I think I mentioned we're looking to open some doors in Costa Rica. We're not closing any doors in Guatemala. In fact, we're leading a trip down there this summer again, but had an opportunity through our relationships there to take a team. And when Todd called me and said, "Hey, I'm looking to take my team on a trip," I was like, "Okay, this is a perfect opportunity to open some of those doors down in Costa Rica." And God did some really amazing things through that group, through Todd and his team. Just an amazing group of young women that God provided for us to take down there, and just to see on our way out of there, just the work that he was able to do through this team and the relationships we were able to build and doors that were opened, not really just for Warrior Way, but for our partners that are on the ground there. And looking forward to maybe taking some other groups down there as well in the near future. And Todd has talked about taking his team again. I think the girls that did go got back, and the girls that didn't go were bummed that they didn't go.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
but just the team building that comes from that when you take a team down there and to work together in an environment where they do gain something from it, right? But the intent is to give, and team camaraderie and the leadership that forms out of that. There's really not a better way to do that. So it was a great trip. And of course, anytime you get down to Costa Rica, it's a beautiful country, beautiful people. And it's just a great opportunity. And, tease a little bit, Todd Yelton, he's coming up pretty soon on an episode. We'll get him on to hear more from Todd, who's a great man, great leader, a great person within the game of soccer.
Yeah, absolutely, and we actually do have that episode coming up. It will be the first episode out of the chute after this halftime show, so it'll be the first episode of the second half, season 11. We do talk about the trip, and we do talk about what he learned, what his team learned, how it pours into the culture, the different things that trips like that will be able to do for teams, and definitely an episode you're gonna wanna listen to, so put that on your calendar to in a couple weeks. Just make sure to download that one and listen to it. Yeah, no, in the last couple months, man, I have and going into the next little bit are crazy for me of different trips that I've been able to take and doing different things. In Fort Collins, I was able to speak at a church. In Biola, got to go down there. It was pretty cool. My son, we surprised him. I moved him out on one trip. I had two trips, and then the other one we surprised him and his band. So that was fun to be able to do that for his band debut, and then my daughter and I went down and surprised him. He didn't know we were coming, so that was cool. Do things like that, just
Yeah.
spontaneous things, It was like, "Hey, let's go." It was a Tuesday, so "Let's go tomorrow." And she says, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, why not? Let's go." I was able to do some of my stuff on the road and cleared a couple other things and that didn't need to happen at that moment, and it was a pretty cool thing to be able to. It meant a lot to him. He, the cool 21-year-old, but said, "Thanks a lot for coming, it meant a lot." So, actually verbalized it, you knew it,
Nice.
but he
Yeah.
verbalized it, so it was pretty cool. And then I actually heading out with the global sports movement to Orlando. We're creating a bunch of training materials, super excited to do that with people from all over the world. We got about 60 videos we're making, and there's people that have been working behind the scenes doing stuff. We're gonna be putting the videos together, and so I'm excited about that, and so if that's something that you're around the world and you're looking to get involved with sports ministry and just the global sports movement, look it up in your region, wherever you're at. We got the North American sports movement here that's doing some really cool stuff and just great disciple making training. And then Charlotte got come the coaches on mission gathering that several of the coaches we've had on the show are going to be there. Some others that hopefully we'll have on later. I'm also gonna be getting some future interviews set lined up during that next week, out in Charlotte. So, this is something so obviously when this airs, it'll probably be actually it will be happening when this is released. So if you're listening to this, sorry, it's already happening. But next year you can check it out. And we're actually talking about doing one out on the West Coast, something similar to that. Not necessarily the same thing, but been talking with some of the folks out here on the West Coast. So the one thing
Awesome.
that all this stuff is really, the kinda common theme as I've been really working through a lot of this stuff is the role of coaches as disciple makers, as family strengtheners. It's something that we often as coaches just say, "Hey, let's coach the game, and we gotta make them better soccer players. We gotta make them better." And we talk about we gotta make them better humans, we gotta make them better people. But the reality is all of us as coaches and the 4 coaches that we're gonna be talking to that we talk to in this first half are no exception to this rule. They're making disciples. Now, what are they making disciples to? That's a question of, what you're doing. But the reality is you are discipling people because discipling people is leading people to follow you and what you're doing, and you are an example of something, and you are training in something. Right? And so how are we being intentional in doing that? And when I talk about family strengtheners as well, coaches are given access to the players and to families like few people in our society. Even more so than teachers. Because teachers,
Mhm.
the parents don't really have much interaction with teachers. But with coaches, the whole family has interaction with coaches. And oftentimes parents are telling coaches, saying to coaches just expressly, "Hey, can you say this to my kid because they're not really listening to me?" I mean, every coach that's listening, I guarantee if you've been doing this long enough, somebody has said that to you, especially if you work with teenagers or college players even. And so they will say that to them to be able and I've had people say that to me as a high school coach. I know I've said that to my kids' coaches, every single one of them. And so that's something that we have an opportunity. So I just wanted to kinda say that as I've been really thinking through it and processing it and say, let's not waste that opportunity. In fact, let's help each other to intentionally walk into that opportunity that we have as coaches. Not everyone listening to this episode or this podcast are coaches, but a lot of people are. Parents, make sure that you're listening to this as well, to be able to do that. And if you're a business leader, I think it's similarly any leadership position, you are pouring into people and see it as a discipling opportunity. Even if you're not a Christian and you're not a believer, you are discipling people in different things in different ways. So I think that's just a responsibility, a duty, and a privilege, right? So I think it's an honor to be able to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're tapping into there, Phil, is who are you surrounding yourself with, right? Who are you putting around your children? One of our kids is, looking at maybe get a little bit more serious into soccer, and Waco's a I think it's an odd place when it comes to the soccer community, but we're starting to research some coaches, some people within the community we don't really know. When you think you know everybody in a small town, and then all of a sudden somebody shows up and says, "Hey, I like your kid. I would like for him to come play for me." I'm calling everybody I know in town to figure out who this guy is.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
it's going to be important that my 10-year-old is around the right coaches, and you know yeah, and so really what you're tapping into there is who are you putting yourself around? Who are you putting your children around? Who are you putting your family around? And that does go in line with, you know, family, business, uh, socially, who I think all those things are important. And, it is about discipleship, but it is also how are you being discipled and how are you discipling? And it comes down to who are you around? Who are you putting
Yep.
yourself with? And, who's giving to you and who are you giving back to? And I think that really segues really well into the folks that we got to talk to during this first half of this season.
Absolutely. For sure. For sure. And the first one is and we kinda joked about we had our legend, legend series within a series. We had the Lincoln Phillips and Randy Waldrum, and now Shellis Heidemann kicked off this half of this season. And
Mhm.
man, I had not I mean, I'd had very minimal, direct contact with Shellis, but, obviously, this is a guy who, if you watch the show, if you listen to the show, you've heard his name over and over, whether it's from Paul or other guests of a man who, is a mentor, is a guy who has been part of the game in and around the game for so long, not just coaching, but actually, like we talked about, mentoring other coaches and kinda look at the fingerprint of Shellis Heineman through the game now, it's all over the place. And so, on the note of mentoring even, it was pretty cool going back to a past guest, Randy Waldrum. I saw a friend who was posting a coaching opportunities, and Randy took that on Twitter to repost it and say, "Hey, this is a great opportunity for young coaches," and it's just really cool to see the community and these guys who, when we're talking about it, it's not just words that we're saying, "Oh, these are people who are doing this stuff." No, they actually are doing it and continue to do it even as they go into retirement and other things, and so I know that that's Shellis's story, and to be able to have the conversation and hear how his childhood and some of the trials he went through as a child poured into, going into martial arts and the things in that regard and the idea of building trust with your players and knowing how his childhood and how his the different struggles he had went into that and even struggling, in different ways that made him stronger and be able to see the importance of mentorship, the importance of discipline, the importance of trust building. But I don't know, I wanna hear from you just what your thoughts were. You knew Shellis more than I did before this interview, so I just love to hear from you what your thoughts were on it.
It, when we talk about it's about legends, people who are legendary tend to have stories of legend that are told about them. And Shellis is one of those guys that, as a coach, I've known Shellis, have known of Shellis, and talked to Shellis for years. And there are stories that go around about Shellis, that are legendary stories in the game, out of the game, nothing bad. I'm not talking about bad stuff. I'm talking about just legendary stories, legends made of a man. And a lot of times those legends of story come from an origin place. And I think what we learned a lot during that episode is we heard a lot of the origin story of Shellis that really laid out for me a lot of those stories that I'd heard over the years. Some probably true, some made up, some probably embellished to a great degree. But I think people who know of Shellis and know his successes on the field probably don't know what made him that. And as a young coach and someone who's looking to, you look at coaches who've had success, and sometimes as coaches, you go, well, I'm going to find these coaches that have success, and I'm going to figure out what made them tick. What was it that, what was their methodology, and what is it that made them, this great successful coach? What you're going to find in this episode with Shellis is that what made him the great coach is what actually made him is what has made him a great man. And a lot of what you just said is that he relied on people that made him into who he is, and he has spent his life really giving back to people. Now, the sport of soccer has been kind of his way of doing that, and I think that's where we're probably alike with a lot of us in this game, is that it's just the resource and the tool that God's given us to use to give back. But he's definitely a legendary figure in the game, but there's so many things that you learn in this episode about him as a person that really made him into who he is, and the compassion that he has for people. And like you mentioned too, Phil, you go back through so many of our episodes, he has touched the lives of so many people that have just been on this show, that call him out as being a major influence. I think we talk about a little bit on the show. I think he tries to skirt around it a little bit. I don't think
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. Extremely humble, but outside of that, so things that I really enjoyed talking about with Shellis is that, his experience in the game from being super, super successful in the college game at SMU to then taking on an opportunity at FC Dallas professionally, and hearing his transition story from college to professional, and how he navigated the locker room, people that he relied on outside of his FC Dallas team, but his team of people, his entrusted team around him, to really get into that locker room and figure out how to make that team successful from people that knew him and knew his best attributes and his strengths. And so I really encourage people. There's some really just great, great stuff in that episode. You probably could go back and listen to it 2 or 3 times and pick up something new every time you listen to it.
100%. 100%. We always, we talk oftentimes about cross discipline learning as well,
Mhm.
and
Oh yeah.
like that's something that he not only talks about, but he does, and he's lived out over the course of his career, and they fed each other, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
like, oh, it was a one way. No, it was a two-way. And there's just, it's really cool as far as, like I said, the martial arts and the soccer. And then the other thing, like you talked about, one of the things he talked about that was so powerful, and things we talk about, like, as far as getting rid of viruses,
Mhm.
that episode has so much of that, like, college level, pro level, right? Like, no one is bigger than the team, and if you don't, and to hear how he was able to kinda weed out some of that, and I love too is he didn't, like, call out people in negative way, like, it was just a, this is the reality, and we need to make sure that for the sake of the team, we're gonna make the hard decisions, right? And when you talk about great coaches, I guarantee they're gonna have those stories of those difficult decisions that you don't wanna make. No one wants to make them. No one's like, "Oh, sweet, I get to go do this." No, but you got to, or you're gonna have it's not gonna be the best. So, yeah, definitely Shellis Hyman, like Paul said, go back, listen to it again, even if you listen to it. If you haven't listened to it, definitely listen to it, and, make sure you're taking lots of notes and applying it, because there was a reason he coached for so long. It wasn't just because he, was the only one to go that long. It was because he was doing a really good job and kept doing it, and then, you know, even how he took the Grand Canyon job and why
Yep.
he did it and all. I mean, it's just there's so much to it. Anyway, all right. Well, because we need to move on, we could talk about Shellis for a much longer. But the next one we had was with Brock Thompson, who, it's called Faith in Coaching, and it's talking about, how he incorporates his faith into coaching, but also just, how he, made this South Dakota program and took it on from Lang and it's taken it to great heights. He was the FCA's Leighton Shoemaker Award recipient. It's funny. I laugh like South Dakota. Like what, who's going to South Dakota? But then it's funny. Two of our guests this half coached at South Dakota State. So, I thought it was just Black Hills, Mount Rushmore, but, and Deadwood. And now we're here in South Dakota a lot in the news. If you follow their governor, she's been in the news as we're recording this quite a bit for the wrong reasons. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. If you don't worry about it. Don't waste your time with it. But anyway, what you're the one you kinda said, "Hey, got Brock, you wanna have him on the show?" And then I was able to see him out in California at the convention, at the FCA breakfast, but, super encouraged by this conversation. But what stuck out to you with Brock?
Yeah, the FCA Leighton Shoemaker Award is a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty big deal in my mind, at least. And I think that um, once you listen to the episode and you get to the heart of who he is and how he does things, you understand why FCA honored him with that award. You know, Also, something that sticks out to me, and we talk a little bit about it on the show, is not everybody who's a Christian coach has the opportunity to coach at a Christian university. you
Mhm.
know, and we talk a little bit about that, and what it's like to be a Christian coach in an environment where maybe it's not a Christian institution. It's a public institution, and there's the different things and ways you have to navigate it. There's a couple guests that we talk about that with. But I think he does a great job of just really laying out how that works for him, how he navigates his team, how he pours into his players, and uses his faith as the guide to do that. And I really just value him and who he is and how he goes about what he does. And I just would encourage, obviously any coach, but especially those coaches that are, you know, leading hopefully their faith is leading their journey as a coach and not just leaving it on the sideline, but taking it in the office every day into their team. Really encourage them. They get a lot out of how Brock leads his team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a couple of the things that really stuck out to me, in that interview, the power of "I don't know," right? I think we talked about that during that. That's something I've talked a lot about. "I don't know" is the best answer you can give when you don't know.
Mhm.
It's pride that makes you try to answer something that you don't know the answer to. And, oftentimes that can do more harm than good. And so I think that's one of the great qualities of a leader is you say, "I don't know," when you don't know. And then you say, "Hey, well, let's figure it out either together or, I'll figure it out and I'll come back to you." I think it's more powerful when you figure it out together and you talk about it and maybe even research it. If it's with your kids, I think that's something that it's really important for your kids to hear you say, "I don't know." And say, "But hey, let's figure it out together and go online, go to, figure out the answer, whatever." We used to have to go to encyclopedias, but, now you just go and do it.
Or
It's oftentimes yeah,
a
wow.
library,
Yeah, I mean, that would
whatever
be
that is.
yeah, I've heard of those. I remember those things. There's been these things going around talking about these things that, you never see anymore that, were, like, in every house in the '80s, and it's, the rotary phone and these other things, 8 tracks and cassettes and beta and VHS, all these different things that kids now are like, "What is that?" It's vintage. Drew, my 21-year-old, got a boombox with CDs recently because it was cool, or the vinyl coming back, all these different things, but that's a whole different conversation. But the other thing that he talked about that was really cool, and I'm just gonna tease this, you gotta go listen to the episode to find out what it is. But as we often talk about, US soccer, the good and the bad and what's going on right now, and one of the things he said is, "What makes America a great country negatively affects youth soccer." And I really appreciated that answer, and I thought it was really good insight into an issue that we talk about a lot on the show. But as he talked through it, it was like, yeah, you know what? He's right. It's like some of these things that make, there's 2 sides to every story. There's 2 sides to the coin, and, that double-edged sword of what's going on. So definitely listen to that. It's a powerful episode. I think Brock was one of those that, again, he was a guy that I didn't really know much beforehand and really appreciated the conversation, and hope we can get him on again in the future because he really has taken that, as you look through, you think South Dakota State, you don't hear a lot about South Dakota State unless you're paying attention, but to really read through the success he's had at that with that program, my goodness, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so I imagine, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I guess when you're successful, you can recruit better, but I can't imagine it's super easy to recruit to South Dakota, for people. Maybe it is. I don't know. But, uh, but that's something that I just look at and go, It's just crazy to see how these people can come in." But it's a testament to him as a coach, him as a program, bringing in great coaches around him to surround him with, and to be able to just just stay at it and going, I really want to pour into human beings and not just bring in soccer players. Right. So anyway, any final thoughts before we go into Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that character and integrity, who you are, that tends to attract certain people, and
Yeah.
I think when you're somewhere long enough, you build a reputation of doing things a certain way, and you find, you know, whether a place is hard to recruit to or not is really up to the coach and what, if they can find the things that are awesome about a school. Every school has awesome
Yep.
things about it, and as a coach, if you can fit into something that you know, makes sense as a university and your personal beliefs and those things can merge together. You can have something pretty special. And I think that's something that Brock has for sure.
For sure. I mean, I guess if you could recruit people to Waco, you can recruit people anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget when we walked in here, people were like, "Hey, good luck with that, man. Ain't nobody going to Waco." So, but we found some beautiful things here. And I think, I mean, it's a conversation I have with coaches all the time that are looking at new
Yeah.
jobs and new positions. It's like, "Hey, do you think this is a good job?" I'm like, "What do you think?" And it's a sales position. You've got to be able to go. I mean, we were in Northern Illinois for 3 years, and I mean, it's cornfields and a
Yeah.
university. And the most beautiful thing on campus is a castle. And it's beautiful. But you got to find the things that are attractive, and you know, you really have to you if you don't as a coach, if you as a coach don't believe that you're at an amazing place, your recruits are gonna
That's
see
right.
through it.
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure. All right.
anyway,
So speaking of doing things that you wouldn't expect you're going to do, the next episode we have with David Irby. It's called "Do Hard Things in Hard Places" because that's something he said and talked about doing. And man, he has done that, and he is doing that, and, I loved this conversation. This is, Dave, I've heard a lot about him because he was the founder or he is the founder of the, Orange County Seahorses, program, which is now the SoCal Eagles. It's part of the Missionary Athletes International, and now he's the CEO of Surge International, and they have Surge Soccer, written few books that we talk about in the episode as well. His latest one is called Undefeated. It shares different stories of players around the world who have faith, and that faith has impacted their lives in major ways in their careers, and then kind of juxtaposes it with the Bible story. It's a really cool book. But one of the things that I was so blown away with Dave is just his humility. I mean, this is a guy you gotta, like, drag the stories out of with, talking about it's like, "Oh, yeah, I helped with the, you know, Civil War, bringing peace to country and, East Africa." Yeah, I mean, it's like, whatever. It's like, and I was hard in South Sudan and, to bring to help with the war there and we just went in and did some stuff. I don't really know what the impact is, and it was just like,
yeah.
"What? You did what in Liberia? You're doing what?" And then it was really cool too, just with that Liberia thing, to see that he and George Blameau, who's our past guest as well, do a lot of work together. And then as I even post it to see all the different lives that he has touched in the world, going, "Wait, how do you know Phil? How do you know Dave? How'd you," and like, "What? How did you connect with this person and this person?" Because folks out there, I mean, I've done work around the world for the last 15 years, and so to see the different people and, like, I joke that I'm probably 1 degree of separation from most people around the world, and you start seeing that, and Dave is similar, and he's a guy who more so than myself, I mean, he's been out there doing it and being on the ground in these different countries deeply, and to see what he's learned from those things and those experiences and those stories and how he has been just a constant in people's lives, using the beautiful game, and seeing how we can use this game to build relationships. We can use this game to make disciples, and we can use this game to literally bring countries together and unite factions that are so far apart. And we can bring this game. And remember when World Cup, Ivory Coast paused their civil war during the World Cup?
Mhm.
Like, this is the power of this game. How are we harnessing it? And to see Dave harnessing it, I saw. he wasn't even there, and they're doing a tournament in Liberia, and there was Sammy Surge is the little mascot for his book that he teaches these principles, through the book, and it had he now they literally have the mascot. He was at the tournament, and they're teaching, and they're training up, and they're doing all this cool stuff. So, just see his impact has been so encouraging, and just love to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, yeah, these 4 guests, I think on every episode, we said this person needs to come back and we need to get deeper in the weeds on some things. And I think with Dave, what you're gonna leave that episode with is you're gonna want more because
Mhm.
we really brush over the trips. I'd love to get him on for a series, and the series should be stories from the field. And we're talking
Yeah.
about the mission field because the things that I'm sure he saw and that he did and that he experienced are things that we all could really learn from, and probably need to be shared for sure. I mean, even in one of the stories he told about how before they left, they had to write letters to their family that they
Yes.
may not make it back. So if you don't listen for anything other, listen for that. Just some. I mean, we're talking about like me going to Costa Rica with a soccer team. We joke about suffering for Jesus. I mean, I was in Costa Rica. Okay, like yes, we were doing ministry work, but it pales in comparison. I know God doesn't have scale, but in my human mind and human heart, I'm looking at scale going, what this guy was able to do in ministry and is still doing is amazing. The other thing, and you touched on it too, we talk about knowing or not knowing the impact that you've made and,
Mhm.
leading in a way that you don't know your impact. You don't know the final result. And if you're doing it for that purpose, you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. But I think it parallels so well into coaching and why most of us hopefully are coaching is that you're doing it to make an impact, but you may never know some of the impact that you make. And I think it's
Mm.
something that hit me pretty hard in his episode. But definitely a great one.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to remember as we do the work we do, whatever the work is that we do, right? Like, you very likely will not see the impact of the work you do most of the time. Even with your player, we hear these coaches, you talk about it all the time. I got this wedding. It's so cool hearing about weddings and hearing about the babies and hearing about these different things. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I imagine you probably don't hear from most of your players,
Right.
right? You know,
Yep.
and so yeah, you hear from some, but most are not going, "Hey, Paul. Hey, Marcy. This is what I'm doing." You might see it on Facebook, you might see it on whatever, but you typically do not know the impact of most of the people's lives that you are touching. I have a handful of players from my past in the past of high school that I'm still reaching out, still connected with, but most I don't. Now, and that you just need to trust that God's using you in these different ways. But when you do that, so you're doing that in Waco at Baylor, multiply that by, exponentially, that's when you're talking about doing stuff around the world, right?
Yep.
You went to Costa Rica, you go to Guatemala. You have no idea. You're not gonna hear those stories, but you just need to trust that that faithful, work that you're doing is making impact, and it's not really your business what impact it's making. You're just
Right.
being faithful to the call that you have, and you're gonna go do what you do and trust that that work will have that impact that, God's gonna do what he's gonna do, and the Spirit's gonna move as the
Mm.
Spirit's gonna move. So, yeah, I loved hearing that from him because this is a guy who has done so much, and, I mean, I was just like it's one of those stories that you're like, "Seriously? Like, is all this real? Like, is all this true?
Yeah.
Because there's no way one dude could do all this stuff, but, and still have a marriage that's intact and kids,
Right.
like all that. It's like one of those stories where their whole life's a train wreck because they're doing all this. No, it's like he's doing all this stuff faithfully, and even just looking at what he did over the last few weeks as I've, kind of followed online and seeing some of the different things, it's like he's all over the place. And, it's like in the same sentence, I went to Liberia to do this. I had a board meeting and this, and I was on a train with my grandkids in Arizona. You know, it's like that's just the life, right? And you
Yep.
know that when you are just living as a disciple. So thanks, Dave, for doing what you do, and definitely go check out that episode because you will. It reminded me like Horace Richardson for different reasons, but like these
Mhm.
stories, and you're like, What? Yeah, and then what's the rest of the story? What's the rest of the story?
That's
What
right.
there's gotta be more stories. I wanna hear more. So, yeah, we will get Dave back on, and we will have those conversations. So, anyway, the last episode we had in this half was Lang Wiedemeyer, mutual friend, and, it was another fun conversation with Lang, just hearing these different things, and, as we talked about, he is the 2nd, coach to have coached at South Dakota State, and it was an interesting conversation, really interesting conversation. I One of the things that really stuck out to me was just talking about the transition from D1 or D2 to D1, and, him thinking, "Oh, it'd be great. Everyone's gonna be so excited." And then some of the girls are like, "No, I didn't wanna play D1. I actually wanted to be D2, and I'm a little," and so trying to, like, navigating that and hearing those different things, but what'd you think?
Yeah, it was cool to put, having him and Brock both on in the same, half of a season was kind of cool because you can kind of put some pieces together. I don't think we said it, but I think I'm correct in saying that Brock was coaching under Lang
Yeah,
at South Dakota State, and then when Lang went to take the job at Liberty, Brock he basically recommended Brock to be the head
yep,
coach, and
that's
Brock
right.
now since has been the head coach at South Dakota State. And again, we talked with Lang again about the differences of coaching, being a Christian coach, coaching at a public university, and now a private, Christian university. We talked about those differences and how he leads his teams. Mentorship, you mentioned it was huge. How he has mentored and how he has been mentored. Even through the Iron Chats that they're doing through United Soccer Coaches. And he's another guy that he's been around the game for a long time. He's seen a lot of things. He's got a lot of wisdom. And we talk a little bit through the show about that, the changing of the game through the generations that he's coached through. How not just the game has changed, but how coaching in the different generations has been different from. Even talk a little bit about how he's not really on social media, and
Mhm,
things like that.
mhm.
But a great leader in the game. He does obviously an amazing job out at Liberty. And it's really fun hearing his stories and his perceptions and perspectives on the game, and really truly mentorship through the coaching position.
No, and I totally agree with all that. I think, he he just had a really good perspective on a lot of those things, and not just talking about mentorship, but how he's
Yeah.
doing it, how he has been, why it's important to him, just talking about, the transfer portal and how it's impacting,
Mhm.
the game and all these, yeah, just the different ways that we we are learning from each other, but we're also learning from the different situations, right? From the different situations. We're put in the different situations of culture, talking about creating culture in these teams and having to do that differently over the years. So he's talking about having that consistent culture, but also understanding that society is impacting it and the social media and all these different things are impacting it. So you can't just do what you did before. You got to be actually not changing who you are, but changing how you do the things that you do in who you are. And so I think it was really, that's where I think mentorship is so important, to be mentored by people older than us, but also to be mentored by people younger than us on the things that we need to learn. It's why when I'm putting together a board of directors, I want to make sure to have young people on that board of directors. Because if we just have a bunch of people in our age group, well, we're going to think the same way. We're
Mhm.
not going to have that different, uh, you know, perspective on what's going on. And so I think that that's so important. I thought it was very, very good interview. So anyway, as we kind of wrap up this half and looking forward into the next half, we know we talked about Todd. We're going to have an interview with Lance Van Heitzma, who's a referee, not just a referee, he's the director of CONCACAF referees, which is pretty cool. So we're gonna have that conversation. We're gonna have a few other conversations that are gonna just be great. Continue the great conversations we've been able to have. But just, as you think about common themes, as you think about as we're wrapping this up, any just kind of parting thoughts as we move forward?
Yeah, I just continue to hope that, you know, folks who are listening to this are just gaining as much as we are out of this. And I feel like I say that all the time, but it truly is an amazing opportunity to get deep into the lives of some of these coaches who are doing this stuff every day, who are leading people, leading themselves. every day. And I think I said it back at the beginning of the show where we're talking about Shellis. You see the successes of a lot of these coaches, their wins and their losses and this and that. But I think to truly be able to emulate great people, you need to know who they are and what they're about. And again, you're not trying to become a carbon copy of those people, but you need to be able to grab bits and pieces of different people that you value, that you admire, and be who you are, right? The person that God's made you to be the leader God has made you to be. But you can learn from all these other people, take bits and pieces, and allow it to allow God to form you into who He wants you to be, so that you can be not a carbon copy of someone else, because you won't be very good at it. You won't be. You won't be Shellis Hyndman. You won't be David Irby. You won't be Lang Waynemeyer. You won't be Phil Dark. Like, well, you will, Phil, but everybody else
Yeah,
listening won't be.
exactly.
You will be.
Yeah.
But I think that's important. I think that's why these episodes are so important, is you can just glean so many different things, and some of you just cast off. Hey, that's not me. I'm not that doesn't fit into who I am. It's not a bad thing. It's just not who I am. But there's so much great content that I'm constantly encouraged. I'm constantly motivated. I'm constantly challenged in the leadership roles within my house and outside of my house. And I just hope that that's what other people are pulling out of this as well.
I love that. I love that. That's so, so good. I was just recently on a call where we were talking about, Priscilla and Aquila, and are they the model for a great marriage? Right. And somebody said, kind of the power couple, I think is how
Mhm.
someone referred to it. And I said, or somebody else said, I don't think it's a model, I think it's an example. And I
Mhm.
thought that was such a good way to say it, right? It's
Yeah.
like these are all examples for us of what it is to do these things well. And it's not going to be how you're going to do it. It will not look like that. And if that's what your gauge of success is if it looks like Shellis or it looks like Ling or it looks like y- you'll fail because you're not them, they're not you, and nor do you want to be, nor do they want you to be, nor does anybody want you to be. 'Cause you'll be a very bad, as we say, facsimile of it. Remember
Yeah.
remember the faxes?
I
Faxes,
remember
copy.
those. Yeah.
Copies are never as good as the original. Um, just look at movies. Uh, anyway, that's a whole different commentary that we can talk about later.
Different episode.
Anyway, and speaking of movies, I do wanna recommend The Beautiful Game. Very good movie about the Homeless World Cup. It's on Netflix. I thought they did a really good job with it. We're hopefully gonna get the Street Soccer USA, president on. We talked about getting him on. So we're gonna do that sometime. But that movie was done really well. It was done really well, I thought. It's fun. It's got a lot of soccer in it, but it's also got some good stories about the Homeless World Cup and some of the backstories behind some of the people that are involved with it. So definitely check that out
It's
on
cool.
Netflix. Watch it with my son. Definitely something you can watch with your kids and enjoyed it. So anyway, folks, as always, hope that you're taking what you're learning from the show and you're using it in real ways in your lives. And as you listen, definitely be thinking of people that you can share this with. We don't talk about that very much, but be sharing this. Go on, rate and review the show. Get it out to more people. That does help get it out to more people. But the thing that will help it get out most is you sharing it. If this is helping you, share it with others who you think it will help. Paul and I love these conversations. We'll do them just because we love having these conversations. But the thing that really excites us is when we hear back from you as far as how it's helping you, how it's helping others. So share that with us as well. Give us some feedback on our different social media outlets. We have on Instagram, Facebook, are the main two that we're on, and reach out to us there. Love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your comments and interaction. That really is encouraging to us, and it's something that we really do read and interact with, and if there's guests that you think we should have on, let us know. Let us know there. Would greatly appreciate that, and, just reach out to us if you yourself would love to be on, we've had that as well. That was Dave Irby, he talked to me at the convention and was like, "Hey, I'd love to be on." I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Yes, when?" Right? And that's often the conversation. So, anyway, folks, Warrior Way, soccer.com. If you want to learn more about what Paul and Marcy are doing with Warrior Way, if you want to go on a trip in the future, definitely reach out to them. That would be a great thing. We got Coaching the Bigger Game. rearing up right now. If you want to learn more about that, coachingthebiggergame.com. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do so just at Phil at howsoccerexplainsleadership.com. We can have a conversation about really, anything that we're talking about here on this show. I'd love to do that. So, with all that, folks, we hope that you're taking all that you're learning from this and you're using it to be a better coach, a better spouse, a better parent, a better leader, better in everything that you do. And continue to remind yourself that soccer does explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great couple weeks.